To me, Global Reach Out is inspiring.
It's connecting with God, reaching out to the world, and impacting life.
The stories that shared is so personal and it deeply impacted me.
Global Reach Out to me is reach out to the truth.
Connecting hearts, connecting lives. You're listening to Global Reach Out.
Hi there. I am Dr. Gilbert Suhu, welcoming you back for the 9th episode of our series of talks on the topic, My Work, Career, and Vocation. In the previous episode, we looked at the concept of carpe diem in the context of living life well as the fruit of exercising self-care. In this episode, we take a closer look at pursuing our personal goals and climbing the corporate ladder. Thus, we continue our focus on ourselves as a necessary first step in the pursuit of a vocation, showing common grace for the common good. At first thought, focusing on our personal professional goals does not appear to relate to the common good. It seems more like us seeking personal gain, a bigger paycheck, more prestige and authority. But it's important to set goals, indeed high goals, if we discern it appropriate in our particular case. Case in point, God as the highest and most powerful being, characterized by wisdom and authority, is the source of common grace, blessing the world, all humanity. He can do it because he is able. He has the position, resources, and ability, and he channels all his wondrous attributes to shower us with good things because of his benevolence, compassion, and mercy. He has the necessary resources to give generously, even beyond our wildest imagination. He is good and loving. An example from the human perspective would be Bill Gates, one of the richest people in the world. He and his former wife head the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Up to now, their organization has donated roughly $36 billion in US currency to improve healthcare services, to reduce extreme poverty anywhere in the world, and to provide educational opportunities and access to information technology, particularly in developing countries. He can do this at a scale the rest of us cannot replicate. His philanthropy is far-reaching, global in scope. He has helped countless of people. Warren Buffett is another billionaire who commits to large-scale charitable initiatives. These examples provide a rationale for us to aspire to go as far as we can in our careers. The further along we go, the more good we can accomplish potentially. It all still depends on our benevolence, goodwill, and compassion toward others. Of course, everyone is different, with various giftings, opportunities, and situations. Some, for example, have aged parents or a sick relative to care for. Then their priority is their families. One of my colleagues' wife was a social worker earlier in her life. She still works in the field, but now is in senior management as a policymaker. Before, she touched the lives of individuals and their families. Now, her decisions and recommendations impact an entire society. Her personal reach has increased dramatically. Each of the stories about Gates, Buffett, and my colleague's wife illustrate the power an individual can wield for good or for evil. Modern history features some of the most evil people who have triggered catastrophe for their countrymen and indeed for the rest of the world, causing great harm and destruction and requiring generations to recover. But what about our story? We may not wield the same degree of influence or profound impact on society, but we can leave our imprint on another person, family, or even a group. Will we promote good or evil? In Ecclesiastes, we find an example of someone who wielded a lot of influence, blessed with unrivaled resources, position, and opportunities. I consider his case because he cannot be easily classified as having promoted good or evil in the traditional sense. Yet we can learn an important lesson from him. We read his story in the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, verses 12 to 18, and in the second chapter, verses 1 to 11. He was an unnamed king and teacher, possessing great wisdom, wealth, authority, and the luxury of turning his life into an elaborate experiment. See, with virtually no obstacle in his path, he embarked on grand enterprises and successfully completed them all. And yet, when he surveyed his accomplishments, he felt deep disappointment and called it all meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. Now, to understand his conclusion, we recall the context. He wanted to see what he would gain for his ambitious projects, but realized in the end that he could not enjoy any of it long term in light of a limited lifespan. The thought that someone else would inherit it all. He was a self-focused ambition, only for his own personal benefit. But all is not lost, as his title teacher suggests. The majority of Ecclesiastes represents his observations, insights, and conclusions which he will pass on to his readers. Hence, even though he initially only sought personal gain and found that disappointing, his instruction to others about his experiments and findings illustrate that anything that is strictly self-focused will disappoint. Only in seeking to benefit others can a real and lasting sense of accomplishment be achieved. He did this as a royal teacher, not just any teacher, but also king. There is a greater likelihood people would listen and be receptive as he spoke with authority, as ruler and as the wisest of men. His credibility ensured a ready audience to receive important lessons to a whole nation. As a teacher of his people, he sought the common good. They would not need to repeat his experiments and be forewarned about the disappointments and frustrations he experienced. He passed on his wisdom to them. His memoir features commands or directives, warnings, and instructions. We can magnify our influence the higher we climb the corporate ladder. True. Not all of us are destined to become the company president or CEO, but we may be able to climb a little higher than where we are now. Ambition can be a good thing if the motivation behind it is noble. We're not talking about selfish ambition for our benefit only, or even at the cost of others. Some of us have worked with or for toxic people who manipulate or use us for their own benefit. We may know someone who make themselves look good to management by making us look bad by comparison. Or we may have had co-workers who viewed us as the competition, but then promoted collaboration so the whole team benefited. We're talking about attaining a position of influence or capability in order to maximize our potential for the common good. Thus, the priority is still for others, and how might we bless them effectively? There may be personal benefits and perks, for example, higher salary and position, a greater say in organizational matters. But in a way, we treat them as fringe benefits in comparison to the greater good we can promote. This strategy of moving up the corporate ladder applies to those of us who have such opportunities available to them. Others of us may have a flatter career path, not upward, but staying in basically the same kind of work. The topic of the proverbial glass ceiling for women and Asians in Western companies is beyond the scope of our discussion. Housewives, for example, manage the home and raise children. As the children reach a certain age, the mothers may have more available time. Some may opt to return to the workforce and resume their careers. Some remain at home. Regardless of which path, even they can strategize about how to maximize their potential for the common good. We have all encountered a group of young mothers or young families at similar stages in life with children of compatible age and facing similar challenges. Their conversations may naturally gravitate to childcare or schooling or child-raising tactics. A young parent can cultivate these social contexts to explore how they might be a helpful companion or friend to a fellow young parent. Sharing common traits, concerns, and struggles invite empathy for each other and a natural desire to help. In lieu of climbing up through the ranks, there may be a different progression. A Straits Times article featured a hawker in business for about 3 years. Before that, she worked in the banking industry for 15 years. She chose to make the transition because of office politics and the incessant pressure of the rat race. She felt it would be less strenuous in midlife when she entered into her 40s and 50s. Initially, the trade-off seemed precarious as she gave up a steady and comfortable income for the uncertain profits of her new venture. As she suffered heat rash from working in the hot kitchen, but she got used to it. She eventually cultivated a faithful following among her regular customers and received encouragement and advice from seasoned hawkers. They became her new community. As a result, she contributes to the common good through her cooking. Although it's not clear whether the potential of blessing others through her cooking was a primary motive or not, her customers still enjoy the product of her labor. Then there are a fair number of former bankers, business people, teachers, and medical professionals who enrolled in seminary to prepare for full-time ministers in order to become pastors or missionaries. The services they provide are more immediately evident than when they were in the corporate world. Naturally, being more visible results in greater pressure to do well. Most cited a calling from God to serve people in this manner. They preach and teach about God's grace, and they themselves show grace to their parishioners. Now, next time, we will ask ourselves whether we are too self-centered or not. But for now, I'll close episode 9 of our series on work, career, and vocation. Until then, have a safe and fulfilling day. Some questions and comments for you to consider. 1, do you think climbing the corporate ladder is too materialistic or overly ambitious? 2, are there any advantages to those you care about should you advance in your career? 3, do you see any value to your community as you pursue your career?
The program is proudly presented by Global Reach Out. We welcome you to share our live enriching webcasts with family and friends through our website, global-reachout.org. Let's reach out to bless more lives together.